Hi, Mark here from the Tangibound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangibound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangibound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangiboundNetwork.com and see if Tangibound Network is right for you.
This is a Danger Entertainment podcast. DangerEntertainment.net. Danger Entertainment Podcast Network.
And welcome to the Pittsburgh Nerd Podcast. I'm Sean.
And I'm Ian.
Hey, Ian.
Yeah.
Did you know you could find us on the Danger Entertainment Network?
Danger?
Danger Entertainment. That's right.
Sounds dangerous.
It is. It's a tad bit dangerous. You'd be shocked to find that out. You know, there's a bunch of great podcasts you can find there. Our friends from the History of Bad Ideas podcast, Who to What Now, Decided Geek. No, they retired. That's right. They retired. But there are a bunch of other great podcasts you can find there, along with us. You know, we're the Pittsburgh Nerd Podcast, and we do pop culture and chili cheese dogs and whatever else floats our fancy.
Yeah.
Check us out.
For sure.
For sure. We're on most podcatchers, so give us a look.
Peace.
Welcome to the podcast from Temperance Town, the sexiest podcast of world renowned. Tony grows a beard to hide his chin, swaps it with Earl so it glistens. Salty, salty language, kings of the sexy frontier. Download the pod, you won't get enough of these dapper chaps talking deadly fluff. In Hobo Gulch they run a homeless mission, clanging and banging with the pentagram of kittens. Salty, salty language, kings of the sexy frontier. They enjoy their whiskey and local craft beer. By Odin's unkempt pubis we give a cheer. Tony's a raccoon when he's booziest. Don't be a savage, be an enthusiast. Salty, salty language, kings of the sexy frontier. On the frozen tundra they call it a lock. Tony likes to masturbate in a sock. Brian pisses rocks cause it feels so great. I still don't know who the fuck is Tate. Salty, salty language, kings of the sexy frontier. The boys will let you know when there's a Spurler. Due to male pattern baldness, they don't wear curlers. Stay salty, people, that's their closing line. And don't forget, have a beer, you'll be fine. Salty, salty language, kings of the sexy frontier. Salty, salty language, kings of the sexy frontier. Salty language.
Hey enthusiasts, what's happening? This is Salty Language, episode 409.
I'm buffering.
I'm too sexy for my shirt. Too sexy for my shirt. Too sexy, it hurts.
Oh, man.
I'm too buffering for my song. Too buffering. That was hilarious.
Oh, man.
God, yeah, love. I prepped that so many times. Like, okay, yep, right there.
Mm-hmm.
And spinning dial.
Yep. Well, there goes your competent board work.
There goes the crown.
No, I'm kidding. I'm Brian, and joining me in place of Tony again this week is our pal Heno.
It's like lesser Tony.
Eh.
Not even close.
Yeah, but at least I know you're not going to fall asleep on me.
Well, this is true.
I mean, at least not yet. You haven't. So
no, yeah, not yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Although I might sneeze.
No,
a lot. I hope not, because it was like last night. I did a gig last night, and right at the end of the gig, I had the sneeze. And it was one of those ones where I'm like I did a little like head tilt. I'm like, okay, that was out of the blue. And then like 5 minutes later, another one. And I'm like, oh, this is one of those uncontrolled. Remember that one night we were just talking, all of a sudden I started to sneeze?
Yeah.
And it's like literally just draining down my face.
Yeah, it was
like
disgusting.
some little dude just jumped up in there and started like squirting.
Yeah.
Tickle, tickle.
That's terrifying.
So I get home and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And I'm like, and I'm lying, and now everything's getting all swollen, just total histamine release is happening.
Yep.
And I'm like, what the hell?
Right.
Like, I know the deadly fluff is out, but it's still like I've been fine all day. So I pop one of my antihistamine decongestants, which I usually only take them in the morning. So I'm like, well, I'm going to need one now.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I have 20 minutes. But then I realized, I jumped on my motorcycle for the first time, which is just like a pollen injection right into my fucking brain.
Yeah. That'll do it. Yep.
Yeah. And that's why I'm like, okay, that's why I'm sneezing. Because like Friday, I got up and did my usual, day off stuff, just chill, play some video games, drink some coffee, then took the dogs for a walk. And I'm like, I need to go up to the gym. And I stepped outside to get in the car, and I'm like, look at this. It's not raining. I'm going to take the bike.
Right.
It was nice. I'm like, even if it does, because there were thunderstorms for the afternoon, I'm like, even if it does rain, I don't care. As long as it's on the way home,
Right, yeah.
So,
yeah.
Which, that was great. But, yeah, that was why the sudden allergy attack. Whew.
Yeah, I had that. Actually, it was last week I had that when I was shorting. Jeez, good way to start, Brian.
Shorting?
No, I wasn't doing that day. I was sorting my shirts.
Shorting the shirts.
Yeah, and
Gotcha.
And it was really hot in my room because my room always stays like 1,000 degrees basically. So, I go over, I open the window up because it was like, I don't know, 65 or 70 outside. So I was like, okay, this'll no more get the window open. The neighbor starts cutting their grass. And I'm like, oh, come on. Like, damn it.
Come on.
It's like, I need that window open, but I also want to be able to breathe and not sneeze like crazy. So I did the same thing. I just, took an extra antihistamine, and it helped, but I was still sneezing like a maniac. So what are you going to do, right? It's that time of year. Yep.
It is. That's basically it.
Yeah. That was the thing, was the night before I remember watching the news, and, they were like, hey, tomorrow's an alert day for pollen and whatever. And I'm like, oh, of course it is, because I need to have a window open, So,
yeah, then the rain and everything, it's just like, this is just fucked up.
Yeah.
The only thing that's been good about it is like my humidifier in my house has not gone off once. Just because it's just so moist. And then finally today I had, I worked a half day today to cover for one of my coworkers so he could have a 3-day weekend too, like the rest of us did last weekend, because he had to come in on Tuesday, which is, he's off on Sunday and Monday. And so he'll take Tuesday off and we have a Monday holiday, but we needed him at work. And I was like, dude, I'll come in, work half day for you, and that way I was able to take a couple hours off, early last weekend.
Yeah,
which I'm totally good with. I love that. And going up there this morning, and I'd worked some overtime already this week, so I'm like, I only need to be there a little over 3 hours.
Yeah.
So again, jumped on the bike, got up there, left, got back, and by the time I got home, it started to sprinkle a little bit. But today was like, I'm getting these freaking wildflowers out. There's like, I have got to get my seed done, and I was finally ready to mow the lawn again. And so I went down to they do this thing where they because we don't have a big we have garden centers here, but we don't have any like a discount kind of a place.
Yeah.
And so there's this group they we had this like kind of it was a local chain called King's. It started in Salt Lake City. But it was basically started as like your classic five and dime, and then it became very famous because every building, the downstairs floor, what ordinarily would have been like a basement of storage was toys.
Oh,
Nothing but toys. And every store was like it. It was their thing. Upstairs, anything that you need, to go camping, some clothing. They always had a lot of like, yarn and sewing stuff and it was just very kind of family oriented kind of place, but they always have that basement. And then in the front, they'd have these tents with, they'd have plants. And it was pretty much one of those things where we're selling until we're sold out.
Oh, okay.
And they set up these tents, and then they had all the topsoil and things like that, like pallets. Again, they bring a pallet in, a couple pallets, dirt cheap. And once it's gone, it's gone. Well, once King's closed down, and somebody else decided to keep the tent thing going, I guess. I don't know if they were never really together to begin with or whatever it was. So they popped one of these up we have like a dirt lot that, an empty dirt lot, and they were there, and I'm like, sweet. So I jetted over there, and, it'll usually a little bit better, or at least it's comparable to Home Depot pricing.
Okay.
Saves me a trip and everything. So got all my stuff, got out there, started doing some raking, mixed up my wildflowers, got them, stoked, got it all done, mowed the lawn, came in, was like, jump in the bathtub. And then Sharon volunteered to go get a pizza. I'm like,
yeah,
yes. I'm like, life is good.
Yeah.
Finished watching. I watched, they finally, did you hear that they came out with a movie for the Deadwood series?
I've seen some people talking about it. I haven't seen Deadwood, so it's one of those shows that,
okay.
Yeah, because I haven't had access to HBO all the time, so it's I haven't haven't watched it yet. I plan to, I just have not done it yet.
Well, so Deadwood ended like worse than, we can come up with a lot of those series that suddenly end, and that last episode, you're just like, or they at least knew it was coming. This one, literally, the last episode, you're like, what the fuck? Like, what just happened?
Right.
And you're like, what do you mean there's not another episode? It was like, it kind of goes back to the kind of the Firefly thing a lot that, I hear most compared with, where it was just all of a sudden it's done. And it's been 12 years.
Yeah, I was going to say it had been a long time since.
A long time. Yeah. And since then, you've got all these actors that have gone on to do some, pretty cool shit.
Mm-hmm.
So, are you really going to get them back? Well, they came up with a great plan. They advanced the location 10 years. So everyone's older.
Yeah.
Everyone's, changed this or that, whatever it is. And I started watching it yesterday, and I got about halfway. I was getting a little bit tired, and I'm like, and it was getting kind of intense, and I'm like, I'm going to finish this. So sat down with my pizza, watched the last half, and I was like, perfect. They freaking nailed it. It was emotional. They ratcheted up. One thing that makes Deadwood really cool is you've got this fancy kind of old-timey way of that everyone's the dialogue. So they're speaking in this very formal fashion with a lot of cunt, cocksucker, fuckers mixed in there. Right?
Yeah.
So they're speaking in this proper kind of a way, which is there's a politeness and a respect to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're talking, like if one character is kind of talking the other about, something on the down low,
mm-hmm.
the way they express it, sometimes I'm literally like, put the subtitles on. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Like I don't understand it, right?
I started doing that anyway because there's so many of these shows that like when they talk, they all mumble, and it's like, I don't want to turn the volume all the way up, because then some sound effect will come in and just crush me. So I've gotten to where I have the sound or the captioning on for a lot of shows now.
Mine are pretty much on all the time now.
It's really fun when I watch wrestling because it gets stuff wrong all the time. But anyway, sorry.
I think I think when I see like live interviews of stuff, that's the really funny stuff.
Yeah.
Where they're just like, yeah, you missed that one.
Yep.
But yeah, so they've just really ramped it up, the dialogue. You get, obviously they were doing it. This is a quote unquote movie.
Right.
It's basically just a very glorified, episode, but they had the time to really take it somewhere. And it's just so funny when they're speaking so properly and everything. And they just drop a fuck in there or a, cocksucker or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It cracks me up, but they hit all the marks. They hit every single one. And it was so great. It was what I think a lot of us that were fans of Firefly back then, that we wanted to see that, like just some closure, something that just kind of boom, 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 boom. So it was really great. So I highly recommend it to anybody. If you watch Deadwood, it's worth the HBO thing. Plus, I don't know if HBO also did a, what is it? What did they call it? Shit, my writing. Can't even read my own. Game of Thrones Last Watch.
I watched that. Yeah.
Did you watch it? Cool.
Yeah. Did you?
Yeah, I did. Amazing.
That was
watching them their read through.
Oh man,
told me everything I needed to know.
Yeah.
Like that. They were just doing a first time read through in character. They had no idea what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And to see them crying, standing around each other, or yelling, like yes, or like oh no, and it really made me realize that these people have, over all this time, whatever emotion you see on screen is real.
Yeah, there's definitely an element to it, because you're right. It was that stuff was really cool, and because it was funny, because when I'm watching it and I'm like. Because when you see, spoilers, I guess, if you haven't seen the end of the show or whatever, but Kit Harington, when they're sitting there and he's reading and they're right before he kills Daenerys. And you can see when he reads it, the look of holy shit just washes across his face.
Yeah.
And he just has his head in his hands and you can see him tear up, and he looks across the table at Emilia Clarke and she starts tearing up. And it's like, oh my, there's just that moment right there. Because at first I was like, how do they not know? And I was like, oh, you know what? They don't release those scripts. Those scripts are in-house and destroyed, which they show right after.
They show to shredder right afterwards.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
when the narrator so they've got anyone who hasn't seen it yet, they've got a narrator reading what happens, the action or whatever.
Yeah.
And so again, when Jorah Mormont is out there just fighting for his last bit, just getting crushed, and it's like, again, you look at Emilia, and she literally has got tears in her eyes because she knows what's about to happen.
Yeah. Or
it was like, wow.
Or the last day when she's sitting in the chair to get the wig put on.
Oh yeah.
And you could tell she's tearing up at that, because, the finality of it is finally catching them,
And even the guy that makes the snow.
That guy. I love that guy.
That guy was awesome. They really went out of their way to show okay, this is just one person amongst all of them. And this is what this guy has to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he takes his snowmaking so seriously that it was the fact that a fucking cup of coffee slipped past somebody after watching what they did.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's amazing there weren't more cups of coffee.
Yeah, because that was what I told somebody. I said the biggest takeaway I have from that is just a real holy shit moment about how many moving pieces there were that had to click perfect.
Yep.
Because of their time frame and all, and the budget and everything else, when the one special effects person's talking about how much each episode cost, and they were basically like, this show has to end because it's getting so expensive. We literally can't go more, because they'll never get the budget for it.
To see their sets and how they, what they were doing. It's like, holy
when
crap.
they wanted to do King's Landing. And they were just going to rent somewhere. And then they were like, oh, there's just this big lot behind us. And they just built the city.
They built it. Exactly.
The whole city right there. I was like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, they build cities for other shows and stuff. But it was just like that's the kind of level of stuff they were doing. And it was amazing. Like, I really loved seeing the behind the scenes stuff, but also you could just see how much a show like that just wears on not just the actors in it, but all the behind the scenes people, the special effects people, the woman who does the location scouting, just all the director, or like you said, the guy that lays the snow. I couldn't believe they flew him to Spain basically to dump four cups of snow out, and that was his whole job. But you think somebody else could have handled that, but whatever,
But when you see how serious, how he took his job, you want that guy there.
Yeah, you totally do.
You want that guy. I loved him. He was my favorite part of the whole thing.
Me too, or mine too. Him and the one guy who was the extra that was part of the Stark Guard.
Yes.
That guy was great.
He was great. Yeah.
And that was so awesome at the end, like when he gave him that jacket, and Harrington shows up on the last day wearing the coat. That's a cool move.
That's huge.
And then he's like, I can get you this year's, and Kit Harington's like, yeah, this is like my favorite coat. Get me, even if he's 100% lying to the guy, it's awesome.
No, but they're not. They're not. That's the thing.
Yep.
Because what was so cool is that they literally have custom, they have each section, you do drag and you do this. They had their own logos. They had their own thing. Like, I love the whole, with a great beard comes great responsibility. And his entire crew is in beards.
Yeah.
Like, that's their thing.
Yeah.
They even have a sigil. And that's the whole thing. They did like the Game of Thrones. Everyone's got their thing.
Yeah.
And if you're an actor, you don't get that stuff.
No.
And an actor, like, I know for myself as a musician, I would be totally into that.
Yeah.
Like, as much as like someone behind the scenes might want like my guitar pick or my whatever, I would want that guy's, crew jacket or something like that for a tour, because it's going to be different than anything I would get.
Yeah. That's
so
true.
I believe it.
Those were really cool too. The coats were awesome.
They were amazing.
And I love the fact though that, like I was saying, is like, even if he were bullshitting the guy, he gave that guy such a moment, and like you said, I don't think he was. I think he was being genuine. But that guy got such a moment. Like, you can look at him, like, he just has this like giddy look on his face, like, holy shit, he wants one, like. So it was cool. Like, it's always, it's nice when you can see just pure unadulterated joy on somebody's face, And I thought that was pretty awesome. And I love that they did that because Kit Harington was part of the Night's Watch, and a lot of the Night's Watch were just extras. So when he was just part of that whole group, he kind of was part of the extras, even though he's clearly not. He's, one of, if not the star of the show. So, I like that he bonded with him. Like, he knew the guy's name, he wasn't just like, hey, it's you,
Yeah. Well, that was kind of the Jon Snow mentality too.
It really was. Yeah.
He never put himself above anybody.
No. And that's really awesome. I loved, like I said, I really dug that. There was something else I was going to mention about it. I can't remember now. Darn it.
It was a great program.
Yeah, it was a really good watch.
One thing that it made me think of, I finally got to go see John Wick 3.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of sets, like, wow, there were some sets in that I was like, holy cow, they built that? Like, it just blows me away sometimes when they either if they find a location or oftentimes they will build it.
Yeah, if they
because
can't
there's
find
no
something.
place like this vision we need.
Yep.
And I know they built it because they destroy it. It's like
much
usually
like
an action
King's
film,
Landing.
right?
Yeah.
They're blowing it up. So, they need to build it so it works right.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, like, no wonder movies cost what they cost.
Yeah. Right. Well,
yeah.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say now. One of my favorite things in that documentary too was how they showed everybody, or like the main characters, basically when they did their final scene, like when they recorded their, even though it's funny because like when you see Emilia Clarke's final scene, it's not the final scene in the show. It's because I think it's like when her and Jon Snow are up on the mountain, with the dragons, and I think it's when she starts walking down or something like that.
Yes,
And that was the
she
final
watched it.
thing they filmed. And, it was just kind of crazy, because they announced afterwards, that is Emilia Clarke's final scene on Game of Thrones, and everybody goes crazy. I thought that was kind of a cool thing to see those moments, though, because it's not something we usually get to see. But it was cool how the whole team, is just really, they were really celebrating each other through it, and it makes sense. I mean, God, you spend that much time, and man, the amount of time they shot, or they were doing night shooting. Oh my goodness,
Oh, the night shooting was unbelievable.
Oh, I feel bad for those people because most of them are not going to be night people, probably. So that had to be brutal.
At least it wasn't actually that cold.
Yeah, that was the weird part. Was when they
when they're standing around and everything looks frigid, but they're like the guy's just wearing a sweatshirt.
Yeah. Like, okay, guess it's not that cold. But yeah, that was that was a good episode, or a good thing to watch.
Definitely. If you're into the series, definitely watch it.
Even if you're salty about the finale, I think this was a good watch.
Because you know what? I think
story
it's even
of the
better
people,
if you're salty.
Yeah, it might be because maybe you get a different look at things.
Yeah, give you a little lift, see what they actually had to go through.
Yeah.
Because anything that, anything that I've heard it over and over again about them, having to rush and this and blah, blah, blah with the story and da-da-da. And it's like, okay, watch the production.
Yeah. Well, like you said,
to pull this off.
Yeah, when you watch how fast they had to go from one location to another and move and do things to set up and be, it's like I said, it's amazing that they were able to pull that off. Plus, like that one woman said, or I believe it was a woman, talking about how the final season was too big, basically. Like it was getting, like every episode was like they were doing a whole movie.
A movie every single time, yep.
And, that was, I mean, you can just see the stress on it just wears on the cast, or not the cast, but the crew, So that was, also, it was really funny to see, like, in the special effects tent or whatever, just seeing random body parts by body part.
That was so weird. Yeah. I also love the guy eating with the full, prosthetic face on. That was just a riot.
Yeah. Oh, it's just a random prosthetic head sitting.
Guys out there just hosing off dismembered heads and arms and stuff. It was like, damn.
Or watching the people that were the walkers, watching them eat their lunches and stuff. It was so weird.
It was so great. Love that shit.
Also, that was something I didn't mention. The guy who was the Night King, I really dug how cool that was for him because he's a longtime stuntman. And he got to actually be even though he has no speaking parts, but it's still,
he got to be an actor.
He got to be an actor and be a, however you want to look at it. He was a big part of the show, Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool because I even like at different times, like by the time he's done, when he's like, when he's like, yeah, I'd rather stick to stunts. Like it's easier. That was crazy. That was good though. That
was good stuff.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah, definitely watch that. It was good fun. I guess.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
John Wick 3, I was kind of like, the visuals are unbelievable. And then the story, you're just kind of like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
I'll watch it again. It was amazing. I'll watch it over. I watched the first two. I'd watch them over and over and over again. Love the series. Guess they're working on number 4.
Why not?
But
keeps making.
Yeah,
bank.
why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was an awesome experience, and this had some gruesome shit this time where I'm just like, oh no. It's like, oh yeah, they went there. Jesus. Just like, oh, I mean, like just cringing sometimes. The violence got even more personal, but the story was just like, wow. There is no story. That's like when I was describing. Did I tell you about me telling my mother all about it?
Yes.
And like it seriously was like, and she's like, what happens in number 3? And I'm like, basically nothing. like I could tell her this great story about 1 and 2, and I hadn't even seen 3 yet. I looked it up already, and I'm just like, and nothing.
Yeah.
A lot of traveling around and fighting and chases and Guns.
Yeah.
Lots of guns.
Yeah, I can't. I really dug the first two, so I can't wait to see this one either.
Yeah, it'll be great. It satisfies,
Yeah.
It definitely does.
Oh, it's
just,
one of those movies, like, I'm going into it and I'm not looking for it to be any sort of intellectual, challenging movie. Like, I'm going to walk in and it's just going to be killing, and, and I'm all right with that. So, did you see, speaking of John Wick 3, did you see the numbers? Like, somebody crunched the numbers, and in the 3 John Wick movies, he has, or there's been more killing in there than Jason and Michael Myers combined have killed. Like, in the whole franchise.
Believe it.
Where's the numbers here? Yeah, in the 3 John Wick movies, he's killed 305 people or 6 people. I think it's 306. There it is. In Halloween, Michael Myers has killed 140 people, and Friday the 13th, Jason has killed 157 people. There's more in the franchise, but it wasn't. Those weren't Jason. Those were before it was Jason in the franchise. So just Jason and Michael Myers kill total is 297. And John Wick has 306 in just 3 movies. And there's a whole bunch more movies of the other two.
And this one, too, is just like the other one where it's like, okay, this scene, all the stunt guys are wearing this. It's like where they all had beards, and then they had to start sticking beards and mustaches on the stunt guys so they could reuse them again, right?
Yeah, right.
So, like this one, they're all wearing whatever face covering, or this one, they all have helmets on, or they all have this, they all have that because they had to.
Right? Yeah.
Because there's only so many people you can kill and not see them again.
Oh, man.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous, but good times. Oh, man. Yeah, I was not that I want to spend tons more time talking about Game of Thrones, but I saw something I was curious about, which was, I was really curious what the numbers were, like, for the finale.
Oh.
Have you looked at these?
I have not.
Okay, cool. Because I'll pull them up, and then, because I want to see where'd this article go? There it is. Okay. So it drew 19 million people between downloads, watches, all the things they add up now. So where do you think it ranks all time on TV finales?
It couldn't be the most. The most has got to be up around 30 million.
Oh, it's way higher than that. Like
way higher than that? Okay.
Way more than 30 million. Yeah.
I was like thinking 38 or something.
Nope. The number one show is MASH. And it had 106 million people watch the finale.
Over 106 million, wow.
And honestly, it'll probably never be touched. Shows will get close, but there's just too many things pulling our attention, I think, now. Whereas back then, MASH was, there were a lot less shows to watch.
I remember it was huge.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, you know what? And you're right. That was broadcast TV. That's all we had, really.
Yep. Well, if you look at most of the TV shows that are on this list, most of them are from, like, the 80s. Like, Cheers is second with 80 million.
I was going to say Cheers has got to be up there, yep.
That's a full 26 million less than MASH. 26 million will put you in, like, 12th place overall. That's how big the disparity was. Seinfeld is third with 76 million.
Wow, they were 70.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Friends had 53 million. Magnum PI had 51 million. The Cosby Show had 44.
What about Dallas?
I'm getting there. Yeah. Cosby Show had 44 million. All in the Family had 40 million. Family Ties, 36.
Huh.
Home Improvement, 36. Frasier, which surprised me. I didn't realize Frasier had this many watches, but 34 million. Dallas had 33 million.
Okay.
Gunsmoke had 31 million.
See, I think I was probably thinking of numbers that I'd heard about Dallas,
Yeah.
But fucking MASH just crushes.
But you see how long of a list it was before I got to the, those. Yeah. Happy Days 31 million. Golden Girls had 27 million. Full House had 24. MacGyver had 22 million, which that surprised me a little bit. Then Game of Thrones. That's how far down the list it is. And you think about how so many people that talk online and you talk to in real life watched this finale. That's just like, think about the fact that MASH beat this by almost, God, what was it? What, 97 million or 87 million? Yeah, 87 million. Sorry. Or no. Yeah, 87. Jeez, Brian, do math. But it beat this out by that many people. Just to kind of think of how big Game of Thrones is.
Yeah.
Now picture multiplying that by 8 times, basically, or whatever. You know, like that is crazy. You know, like I can't imagine. Like it was literally like everybody was watching. You know, the MASH finale. So
yeah, and you're right. It just was a different time.
Yeah.
As far as the what was available on TV.
Mm-hmm.
You know what how things were. Yeah, you could be focused on something like that.
Yeah. Now,
one thing
for HBO, this was a massive win. You know, because that's of all those shows I named, they're all on CBS, NBC, and ABC.
Yep. Yeah.
So, and before that, The Sopranos held HBO's record at 13 million. So it beat The Sopranos by 6 million people. And then Sex and the City had 11 million. So it was, you know, yeah, I was like, oh man. Because I honestly, when I saw it was 19, I was like, wow, that's it? Like, and then I was like, well, it's a pay channel. So
yeah,
for a pay channel to get 19 million that's a big, big win. But at the same time, it's amazing just how.
One thing I just want to mention that when I popped on to last week,
mm-hmm.
I think this was in preparation for the Deadwood movie. They were doing free Deadwood on HBO.
Oh yeah, I noticed that. Yeah. Yeah.
So definitely see if that's like that means that maybe if you have Amazon, you know, you can watch Deadwood for without the HBO upgrades. So
yeah, I think they did that at some point. I think they did that with like season 1 or something like that of Game of Thrones.
That's what I was going to say. Game of Thrones is going to at some point they're going to do something, you know, and because ultimately, like you're talking about, you know, those are great numbers for HBO, a pay service,
Yeah.
But now the way things are, eventually this gets out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, eventually it gets onto Amazon or something, or where they release it, you know, a little bit more freely.
Yeah. Now the number that I've read that people are curious about is what kind of decline HBO subscriptions will have.
Oh yeah, as a result,
because it always goes down after a season of Game of Thrones is over, but now it's done. You know, like there's So it'll be interesting to see if people come back. I mean, they got plenty of shows that are good.
That's what I was gonna say. Their programming has been really solid, and like Veep just ended, and that is just damn funny.
Oh, that show's great. Yeah,
like it's great. I just heard on it was I think it was Pod Save America, one of the Pod Saves. They actually interviewed Dreyfus. Yeah. And it was a great podcast because what they did is the guys that do the whole Pod Save series, they are former, you know, they either worked in the Obama administration or they were involved with campaign stuff or whatever it was.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So Veep actually had them over. They sat down and got story ideas from them. And it's funny because in this podcast they're talking about how when they find, you know, there was a famous deal, and this is a true story where everyone was at one airport and Obama ended up at another one, or it was Kerry or whoever it was. I'm forgetting which one, but it was whoever the candidate was ended up at a different airport. So Veep did it for the beginning of the season.
Oh, nice.
The last season. And I think it was John on the show was when he was watching it, he's like, hey, that's, and then he went, because he'd forgotten that he told them the story.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Obama that they literally, he landed at the wrong airport.
Oh, man.
Where everyone was somewhere, and how does that happen?
Well, especially, because every little thing with these candidates is mapped out, like here's your day from minute 1 to the end to when you're putting your jammies on,
Yep.
So.
And it was, and what's funny is they were talking about, they talked a little bit about the idea that it kind of had to end because they were predicting stuff 2 years before it actually happened. They were creating ridiculous political stories, and then like Donald Trump would do it.
Yeah.
And they were trying to come up, because she ends up being basically a cunt. I mean, she's not a good person.
Right.
You're still rooting for her because it's, Dreyfus and there's just something about
But you're right. She's
a shit.
She's
right?
just likable enough. But when you look at it, it's like, this is also somebody you wouldn't want to be friends with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So she would get up there and say something utterly ridiculous 2 seasons ago, and then Trump did it. And they're just like, okay, we need to stop.
See,
but that was the thing with the Pod Save guys is there were some of the stories that they told them actually happened in real life.
Yeah.
Where they're like, yeah, if we would have thought about that, we would have shot the idea down as too ridiculous. And that just makes me laugh.
Wow. Yeah, the other thing with shows like that, I always feel like the shows that are based on politics should have a short run. Not that this had a short run. It was 7 years or something like that? Or 6?
7 seasons.
Yeah.
So it's at least 7, maybe 8.
So, because to me, I never wanted Selena to become president. I wanted her to stay vice president for the run of the show, essentially, or the show kind of end if she were to win type of a thing, or lose, and then the show ends.
Yep.
Because I think she's funnier in the Veep position because you're not in absolute control kind of a thing, you still have to listen to what, you're told a little bit. But some of the other shows I've seen, honestly, House of Cards was like that. When I was watching that, I was like, okay, in my head, this is a 5-year show, a few of the years with him doing whatever, he ascends to vice president. At some point, he runs for president, and then basically, maybe you give us a year of him as president, and we're done, or something to that effect. It is sad to see Veep go though, because then I saw they just announced Silicon Valley, whatever.
Titties.
Yeah, Silicon Valley is going to be ending after, was it season 6, which I think's the next season.
Yeah, it needs it. Yeah, it was season 7 was the last episode of Veep. 7 episodes is on May 12th.
Okay.
And this season's been hilarious. I haven't finished it yet, but Silicon Valley is one of those ones where they keep spinning the same kind of trope, and it has to end. You can't, anytime because I compare it to cringe flicks.
It totally is.
Right?
It totally is.
Right. So it's the Ben Stiller, you're the butt of everything goes wrong for you. You always stick your foot in your mouth. And I already have a difficult time. I don't really like movies like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, really don't like when the guy just the same thing happens over and over again. And it ends up being like my criticism of Flash, of why I just decided to stop, because I'm like, okay, here, we talked about it last week. Here we go again,
Yeah, there's the jokes in that show are really good. The bits that they write are so good.
Yes.
But I'm with you. I watched the first 2 seasons, and I had to take a lengthy break before I started season 3, because by the end of season 2, I'm like, okay, you can't lose every week.
Yeah.
And then they finally give him a win at the end of the season, but it's like, dude, there's too many episodes here. You got to give us little wins in the meantime. And you're barely doing that. You're giving us just the tiniest amount of crumbs. And I'm like you. It's like I can sit through a cringe flick and I'll be fine. But when you think about it, when you watch a season of a show, you're watching 10 to 13 hours of cringe flick. You know, at some point, it's like you have to pay off. It'd be like watching a wrestling match, and you just watch for an hour, a guy just get his ass handed to him. But then in the end, oh, he wins, and it's like, okay, but that didn't need to be an hour. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because in wrestling, that is a strategy. There are guys like Rey Mysterio is a perfect example. Whatever match he's in, he usually gets his ass handed to him left and right, and then at some point he has his comeback, and then he wins or whatever. But you know, and when he does win, the crowd goes crazy because, you know, it looked like he was basically, you know, just getting ragdolled, and all of a sudden he comes out of nowhere with whatever move and wins, you know.
Yeah.
Like I said with Silicon Valley, that was the same thing. I was like, at one point I was just getting mad at the show.
Yeah, me too. It was starting
You
to get to me. I'm like, all right, come on.
Yeah. And it's like, God, how can this guy be this smart and this big of an idiot? Or why hasn't he gotten himself a manager to fix these problems? You know, like,
Yeah.
how do you keep stepping in it? Like, you know, like, good Lord.
Over and over.
Yeah. Not to mention, I mean, early in the thing, I mean, not that I'm pushing the reality edge of the show, but it's like, if basically Google was fighting you, you're not beating Google. There's no way.
Yeah.
They would do other shit that would bankrupt you in the long run. So when they beat that guy, I forgot the name of the other company in that show, but I was like, yeah,
Cooley.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, no, like nice try.
But here's the thing: is like at least with Hooli, they created a representation of somebody that you don't like.
Totally, yeah.
And that also had his own, you know, character defects. So at least you could run with that, you know.
Yeah, because even the other people that you may not like, oh God, I'm terrible with the names on this show too. T.J. Miller's character,
Ehrlichman,
yeah, with like him, he's a scumbag. I mean, there's no question. But at the same time, every time you think you're about to write him off, he does just enough that you can't quite write him off. You know.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly,
fine.
yeah.
That's fine. That's a character type, you know. But like it's like if you're gonna give me a villain or someone evil, don't make it a random thing. Like make like that. Then you can hate that guy, you know.
Yeah.
Because he keeps trying to stifle them or whatever. You can be mad at him, and that works, you know. But even
what's interesting is
like, whew.
Like everyone. I mean, basically, that's what the show is it's cringe stuff. But for some reason, when you've got like what's his name, Dinesh, right?
Yeah.
Like he always steps in it too, but it's not so big. You know, it's personal,
right?
You know, or like, you know, Guilfoyle, you know, who, I mean, he's he's my favorite.
Yeah.
Like him and Dinesh are actually the best, to me, I think the best part of the show.
I totally agree with you. Because honestly, I can't stand Thomas, what's his name, Middlesitch or Stitch or whatever his name.
He drives me nuts.
I don't like actors that are like that. The real nervousy kind of meek.
Yeah.
I can't stand that. So that's why I don't like what was it? There's another guy that I can't think of his name. Anyway, moving on.
Who's the guy that was on? It was Superbad and Juno. That actor,
yes,
I'm
Michael Cera. That's exactly who I was thinking of.
Michael Cera. Yeah, he's one of them too. It's like
on Arrested Development, I totally loved him, but after that, I was done with him. So
yeah, there's that, and there for some reason their cringe stuff it's just different. It's more personal stuff. It's not as it's not as big, you know, when you're losing money and all that kind of stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah.
You know,
exactly.
The whole show hinges on like the whole company after a while, you're just like, okay, you know, how many more times can you fuck this up? But the guy that runs Hooli, one thing that's amazing is if you really think about it, he's a lot like what's his name, Tesla. I mean, you know, it's like
that's the thing is looking back now, he reminds you more of Elon Musk than he does someone from Google. Yeah. Google, even though I'm sure that company clearly was supposed to be, at least I assume it was supposed to be Google, but yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah. I'm with you though. Those other two characters are honestly the reason I stuck around. If those guys weren't on the show, I don't know, like, because they're so funny that without them, I think I would just be annoyed all the time.
Well,
So,
and like even Big Head, because it's just such a ridiculous character.
Yeah.
Who's the exchange student guy, kind of, that, that Ehrlichman. I mean, when he's starting to just rip off their platforms. I mean, that was, and it is just like, I don't give a fuck attitude.
Yeah.
Loved it. Right. That was hilarious. It was all the ancillary characters.
Yeah,
because Richard, you're just like, oh my God, dude, could you do it again? Like, come on, show, quit doing this.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's like
not fair.
It feels like it just feels like one of those people that it's like someone needs to take over for him for his own good because he can't get out his own way. That's why I said, like, as a movie, the concept of this show would work really well.
Yeah.
You give me 2 hours or an hour and a half of this at the end. He overcomes the big company. He gets rich, whatever. Everybody wins. Or is happy. But that's why I said it was like I had to take a big break. And I've realized I can't watch more than like 1 or 2 episodes of that show. I can't binge it. I just can't.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Because I just get mad.
Yep. That's it. Yeah. And that's why I'd like that actually happens to be one of the few shows that Sharon and I will sit down and watch together. So, because it's short and it's pretty funny and it's not superheroes or science fiction.
Right.
And so she'll watch it with me.
Yeah.
And on a weekly basis, it's fun. I get it. I get into it.
Yeah. That's what I was telling. I remember telling Tony, like, when the show first came on and stuff, I was like, if you watch it week to week, I can deal with it, but I'm like, I cannot sit and watch, like, because I think I felt like 3 episodes behind or something, and when I watched them, by the end of the 3rd one, I was like, man, I had to put something else on, because that was, like, I was, like, angry.
Yeah. So true.
So weird. Yeah. Oh, man. So, I saw this the other day, and it's kind of a throwback to something we had talked about a few times. Not you and I as much as Tony and I, but it was on the show. It was announced yesterday or the day before that Max Sabbath and Oakley Dokley are touring together. Do you remember? Max Sabbath they dress like McDonald's characters and they play Sabbath songs.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And Oakley Dokley is they sing songs about Ned Flanders and dress like Ned Flanders. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. Oh man,
that's a party.
Yeah. It's like part of me wants to see, like, I haven't looked yet, but it's like I'm gonna look to see if they're anywhere near here, because if they're near here and it's not expensive, it's like we gotta go, because I gotta see this in person. At least the Max Sabbath part, especially.
Yeah, that just sounds hilarious.
Yeah. So that just cracked me up. So this next thing I wanted to talk about actually reminded me of us when we were in Chicago, when we were looking at that big gray square or rectangle or whatever the hell it was.
Oh yeah. That's right.
And we were both like, "This is bullshit." Because
yeah. All right, so how big was it? It was at least 10 feet by 10 feet, right?
Yeah, it was huge. Yeah,
it was huge, and it was just gray.
Now, allegedly, there was a light gray or a dark gray square underneath the other paint or something, but I didn't see it.
Yeah, I wonder if they list that on their
good question,
their website. Anyhow, you go ahead. I'm going to look this up.
Yeah. If you find it, that'll be awesome because we can post it.
Yeah.
So I saw that. Come on, article. I'm trying to see where this was at. Anywho, it was. This might be loud. I hope it doesn't. Okay. The headline on it is, "Oh shit, this isn't new. Why did this come through as new?" Anyway, it's from 2016. This isn't even remotely new. Anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and talk about it anyway. But it was back then, a pair of glasses were left on a floor at a museum, and everyone mistook it for art.
Oh, no way.
Now, for anyone who doesn't know me real well, I'm not a big fan of I'm not a big fan of this modernist kind of work or this kind of abstract type stuff where someone will just make like this, you know, they just lay a hat on an angle in a corner somewhere and that's their art. I don't like that stuff. I will never, ever, ever understand how it's art. So, but whatever. I mean, I guess it does because, art is supposed to encourage emotion and, I look at it and just get angry because it seems stupid. So I guess it does its job. Yeah. So anyway, so that's why when Hendo and I were at the art museum, and we see this, we're both standing there, and I mean, I'm trying to give it every, chance I can, but it's like, this is just a big gray rectangle or square. I don't remember which it was. I think it was square. It's like, so So when I read this, I laughed really hard because I can totally see a bunch of snobby people standing in a gallery discussing the merits of these glasses and what they mean in a societal fashion and blah, 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 because, so many of these art critics and art people are just, full of shit. That's what they are. So, I'll have this article in the show notes if you want to, but
so
there's...
I can't find the gray one, but I found this homage to the square yellow signal, and it's literally 3 yellow squares.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually, So, but it was the same idea.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, they painted 3 yellow squares.
Yeah.
That's classic.
Yeah. That's why I said it's like, it's so weird to me how the only explanations I can ever get from people on how these things are art remind me of the bullshit that artists are taught to spew in art school. Instead of getting up there and telling the real reasons behind things, you're trying to add depth to it so that it can add value, and it's just stupid, I'm sorry, but if you just painted 3 yellow squares, you're not making a commentary on anything other than you just want to paint 3 yellow squares. You will never convince me otherwise.
I mean, at least the title is good, that it's homage to the square yellow signal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. It's an homage to the square.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, you
yellow.
know what? Like, if you just, hey, you know what? I felt like painting yellow squares. I can buy. I'm totally in on that. Like, cool. Yeah. They look great.
Yeah. But just don't make it into some statement. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's funny because, I'm sitting here bitching about art snobs, and I'm actually like being an art snob while bitching about art snobs.
Well, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
It's just, it's like me. It's like me with music and us talking about politics.
Yeah.
At some point, the hypocrisy rides in.
Yeah, right?
Like, oh, go. Here comes hypocrisy. Galloping in.
Oh, man. Yep. Hungry hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That's so great, though. I just love that idea of just like somebody drops some glasses in.
Yeah, I'll tell you, like, whenever I see stuff like this...
What do you think the artist is trying to say?
Oh, and that's the thing, and it was at a Museum of Modern Art, so there was somebody doing that. And that's why I love when...
And, somebody proffered an explanation.
Oh, probably. Yeah. Like, yeah. I love reading these kind of stories because they do make me laugh. Because they point out how absurd the art community can be about stuff.
But here's the thing. Like, all right, so I'm just scrolling through the contemporary art, and there is one. It's called Untitled Last Light, and it's rope light on the floor. It's a string of LED lights, or no, they're not LEDs. It's a string of, all right, you take the Christmas lights and you put them on the floor.
Mm.
That's literally the exhibit.
Yeah.
24 light bulbs, extension cord, plastic light sockets, and dimmer switch. That's it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's
That's
like I just
contemporary art. That's why glasses are art.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's one that it's all black. It's just a black square.
Sure, that makes sense.
Oh, there's a vertical white line just to the right of center, and a thin streak of red-orange along the left side provide the sole interruptions in the black field. The subtle modulations of texture and finish support the artist's claim that I do not oversimplify. In fact, I revel in the extra complex.
See, that's one of those douchebags that's probably the I'm so complex you can't figure me out bullshit types. So, yeah. Listen, like art like that, like you can take a piece of canvas, whatever you end up using as your paper source, whatever, and paint on it, draw on it, whatever you want to do. It's like just be honest. Be like, hey, you know what? I thought this was a cool design, and that's really it. Like it's why I love like when kids do art is when art is at its purest form. Because you ask them, they will tell you exactly why they did what they did, and they're not giving you art school bullshit answer.
Yeah.
You know, do you remember that thing? I mentioned it forever ago on the show, that there used to be like an artist statement generator online.
Oh, God, that's
and
brilliant.
I clicked through this thing a few times, and I've sent it to a bunch of people I know that are artists. Or went to art schools with me, you know, because it's like, oh my God, this sounds like something someone said. Like, this reminds me of things we heard while in school, you know? And I wish the schools, and you know what it comes down to? A lot of it, I think a lot of these art schools are trying to give you tools that make it seem like art is so much more big. It's so much bigger than it really ends up being. You know, it's like you're going to school to just learn how to be an artist. It's like you should be able to come up with your own artist statement. If you can't describe your own work,
that's true.
I mean, something's wrong with you. I've never heard a musician not be able to tell me what they were thinking when they wrote a song. I've known tons of artists and heard the real reasons why most of them chose, you know, made the decisions they made. So it's like, why are we... You know, like, what's with the pretension? Why can't we just be, you know, and like I said, it ends up coming down to, you know, if that guy that you were just talking about with the black square, if he stands there and goes, I just thought it'd be cool. Who's paying $40,000 for that?
You know what? And here's the thing. I would actually, like this particular piece, I would put it on my wall. Mm-hmm. I totally would.
Yeah.
I like it. I actually think it's cool. I wouldn't spend $100,000 on it,
right.
but like I might even take a print of it because I think it's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Like it's got a certain quality to it. But that description, you can just fuck the hell off,
right? That's why. Remember when we were in that museum and I was showing and telling you about Mondrian? Like it's a lot of like rectangles and bright flat colors and everything.
Yeah, I just found it.
Yeah, and I love that stuff. But you don't need to give me some deeper meaning on it. I just think it looks cool. I just think it's awesome design. You know, that's
so the guy that does the homage to the square. That's not his only one.
Well, of course not. I mean,
he does them in different colors, and so they have different titles.
Of course he did.
Now, as a collection, that is like there's one that's called the Chicago panels, and this is a series of colored panels in different shapes. But it's like an orange, a yellow, a red, a green, a blue, and a black.
Okay.
The Chicago panels, Ellsworth Kelly. And as a collection, it's kind of neat. I could see someone like running these up, you know, like in their house along the stairs, going up the stairs.
Yeah.
You know, like we've got the Chicago panels collection here. You know, that I get that.
Or you have them in different places throughout the Chicago office or whatever. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
However, however you want to do it.
Sure.
I can see where it can go somewhere. But yeah, just that lone gray square, that was just like me and you just staying there going, okay, I'm not, I don't, yeah.
And the thing is, this isn't even me just like, I mean, I'm ranting obviously, but like if that artist was standing there, I would have been like, what were you doing here? Like, you
Yeah.
tell me, and then it's just like, and I just feel like I would call bullshit, because, I don't know. Art doesn't have to be cerebral. I'll never, like, that does not have to be, I'm not saying it does, but just, it's one of those, don't piss on my head and tell me it's raining, like, that's kind of what I feel
That's
like.
it. Yeah. If and again, it's not that, like, oh, I could do that. That's not art because I could do that. Well, all right. Sure. I can grab a canvas and paint it gray.
Yeah.
But there's a reason that this is up there.
And there's a reason that this guy chose to paint that gray, and that's the real answer. That's what I'm looking for, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're right. A lot of this stuff, a random person could paint it, but you're forgetting that you're doing it after the fact. It's already been done. If you were to try to replicate it, you could probably do it because you can look at it and go from there. This person approached this and did whatever design work they did to it, for some reason. And like I said, that's always the reason I want to hear. Like,
okay, I think I found it.
Oh, good. Oh, okay, not the statement, but
no, now I feel like a dick.
Why?
It's titled White AIDS, as in AIDS.
Yeah.
Number 3.
Uh-huh. But it's gray.
Yeah, it's a kind of a off-white solid square.
Right.
But his meaning obviously has something to do with...
Yeah, but I don't know.
What now? There's a story behind it, right? There's no description. They don't, and it's
actually, those are the ones maybe that piss me off even more. Are the ones where it's like the artist would like to leave the interpretation up to. It's like bullshit. You just did something, and you just don't want to explain your process. Because every artist has a process, whether they realize they do or not. There's a reason you picked something. There's a reason you chose the colors you chose. There's a reason, even if you don't think there is. It's a, I don't know. I should quit ranting about this. Here, I'm going to read one of the artist statements I found the generator. It's at artybolix.com/generator.html. I'll have the link in the show notes if anybody wants to become an artist. It says, my work explores the relationship between postmodern discourse and copycat violence. With influences as diverse as Nietzsche and L. Ron Hubbard, new combinations are crafted from both simple and complex structures. Ever since I was a student, I've been fascinated by the unrelenting divergence of the universe. What starts out as a vision soon becomes corroded with a dialectic of temptation, leaving only a sense of dread and the dawn of a new synthesis. As intermittent derivatives become reconfigured through emergent and diverse practice, the viewer is left with a clue to the inaccuracies of our world. It's just all bullshit. But that's the kind of stuff I heard from people or read when I was in these art classes. It's just, you're like, stop it. No.
Wow.
Just quit.
Okay, maybe this isn't the one that we saw because, I can't see it though. All right, this is what it said. I'm telling you. All right, I'm gonna have to send you a link to this because I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
And I don't see what it says, but this is what. So this is called General. Who did it is General Idea. They're Canadian, and it was a partnership. Some like that's all right. For 25 years, General Idea forged a single mythologized identity, presenting self-conscious parodies of the art world and consumer culture. In 1987, in response to an invitation to create work for the Art Against AIDS benefit, the group appropriated the colors and design of Robert Indiana's widely quoted Love from 1965, reconfiguring the image to read AIDS. Producing wallpaper stamps, general sculptures, posters, and billboards, General Idea spread its AIDS logo throughout art institutions and transportation systems in the United States and Europe. The letters in White AIDS number 3 are obscured by layers of white gesso. Is that how it's pronounced?
Yeah. Gesso.
A haunting, somber reflection on the epidemic that would take the lives of 2 of the 3 members of the group. So basically, they've got AIDS under there, and then it's obscured in this off-white.
Yes, that I can live with. That to me is an attempt at art.
That's a
and a
statement.
Yeah. That right there is exactly when people make comments about art being a statement on society, blah, blah, that's what they're talking about because that is the case. Because again, if you walk into an art museum and there's just a big gray blob there, you're just like, what is this? Like, what are you trying to say with this? Like, you end up feeling confused. People like to be told what to think. They pretend like they don't, but we all do. And, but and that's the thing with like that one. It's like you read that kind of statement and you're like, oh, okay, because that adds legitimacy to what they actually were doing. Like this was a campaign. This wasn't just a one-off.
And this idea that the group is kind of, looking at parodies of the art world and consumer culture, that changes my whole view of the idea of something being contemporary art.
Yes.
Right. And especially because to me, it's the answer to pop art. It's like, all right, you've got pop art. Well, we're going to give you the middle finger art to your pop art.
Yes. Which is right where if I were like out there doing this kind of stuff, that's the kind of stuff I would be doing. Is stuff just making fun of so much of this garbage, So
I'm glad you brought this up. I'm really glad you brought this up because even if this wasn't the one we saw, it's this idea that it was worth finding out what was behind it because it actually had some serious meaning to it.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
I still don't understand the homage to the square, though, but whatever. There's a yellow one and a green one and a light blue one.
Yeah.
There was another one that I found. It's called Rodeo, and it's a rectangle of yellow over a rectangle of black. So you're going to love this one. 2 rectangular canvas panels, one yellow, the other gray, are joined to form an 8-foot square. Each canvas is pulled across a deep 2 1/8 inch stretcher and painted with a combination of oil and beeswax. The stretchers and thick opaque pigment give Rodeo a sense of weight and a sculptural presence. Like all of Martin's paintings, Rodeo is insistently handmade. The artist laid multiple layers of medium over his canvas panels, adding an extraordinary sense of tactility to this relatively simple composition. The line joining the 2 panels may suggest a horizontal line and thus a landscape. The juxtaposition of 2 rectangular fields also recalls the work of Mark Rothko. In contrast to Rothko's luminous floating fields of color, Martin's twin panels seem determinedly earthbound, presented as physical facts rather than as expressions of spiritual aspiration.
Wow. Now, think back to when I read that artist statement a few minutes ago that was generated as pure bullshit. Like, it's just a thing that puts words together. And now compare those 2 statements. Very similar. You see what I'm getting at? It's
literally
like
it's yellow over gray.
Like, I get it. You have to be descriptive if you're, when you're writing and everything. But it's just like, no.
It's
sorry.
Yellow over gray.
I'll just never get it. Yeah, I'll never get it. It just won't, like.
There, look in the chat. There's a picture of it. Oh, Lord.
Oh my goodness, that's not even what I pictured. When you said over, I thought like overlapping. You literally meant
it's
like
literally
just
a rectangle above it
Oh
because of the line across.
Wow.
It's landscape.
Yeah. All right. That was also one of my favorite things. Actually, one of my favorite things to do in art classes and stuff was name the work.
That's great.
Because so many times it doesn't make a ton of sense. This last time I was in school, I was naming songs like they were Panic at the Disco, or naming art like it was Panic at the Disco songs.
Disco. That's great.
With like 14-word titles to my stuff. Just so pretentious with it. Because I don't know, unless you have a direct narrative that you're trying to get through, the name really doesn't matter, and when you're drawing certain things, people can look at it and tell what it is, Like, do you really need a placard next to the painting that says sunflowers by Van Gogh. I think you can look at it and figure out they're sunflowers, right?
So, Typo Negative on their first album, Slow, Deep, and Hard, had they had the misinterpretation of silence and its disastrous consequences. It's literally like a minute of like I can't remember what it was, but I think it was like a minute of just nothing.
Right.
It was like I can't remember if there was noise. Anyhow, they would do like little jokes like that. But another title was "Unsuccessfully Coping with the Natural Beauty of Infidelity."
Right.
And then another one was "Gravitational Constant."
Hold on a second there.
G equals, and so it's just like you're talking about, like these ridiculous long titles.
Mm-hmm. I love
that
titles
stuff.
like that. Yeah. I used to do that when forever ago. When I used to like different blogs that I would write, I would do that. I would just come up with some ridiculously long name that was just made no sense really. It was, just because it was fun for me. So yeah, that's about as far as I dip my toe into it.
How it's like, and then they don't. So like he has like subsets because the songs kind of mutate. Like they're ridiculous. Like this, they've got a 12-minute song, an 8-minute song, a 9-minute song, another 12-minute song, a 9-minute song. And so he has them broken up into sections, kind of like classical music. And so Unsuccessfully Coping with the Natural Beauty of Infidelity starts with 1, anorganic transmutagenesis, synthetic division. Section 2, coitus interruptus. Section 3, I know you're fucking someone else. Which, by the way, is a refrain of I know you're fucking someone else. And then the whole band joins in. He knows you're fucking. It's so good.
Oh man, I have not heard that, but I'm gonna have to know.
Yeah, Slow, Deep, and Hard. They were still. It sounded like Peter Steele's previous band, Carnivore.
Okay.
So it was more thrash.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't the doom gothic sound that they eventually, brought out with the next album.
Right.
It's just very raw, but it's still fun.
I love it. Good shit. I always love this kind of stuff. What was I gonna say here? Oh, so because I got to cram some wrestling in here.
Excellent.
For anybody who's a wrestling fan, and also if you're curious about kind of what goes on behind the scenes for WWE, I can't recommend enough. There's a Talk is Jericho episode, and it's called was it like the Liberation of Jon Moxley? I think it's called, and it's a guy who was known as Dean Ambrose in WWE. And he decided not to renew his contract with WWE, which does not happen often. Generally, like it's been happening more recently. Like people have been asking for their release and different stuff because the indie scene is a lot better than it's ever been. But this guy talks about how, like, he goes through just how draining it is to butt heads with Vince McMahon on a daily basis, and just other stuff with the company, how he got to a point that he literally was like felt physically ill on Mondays before Raw because that's how much he didn't want to go to work, kind of a thing. And that's why, he got to a point where he, was like, wow, I'm super he got hurt, and when he was coming back, he's like, I'm super excited to go wrestle, for wrestling, but I'm not excited about going to WWE. And he said that basically that's when he was like, you know what, I'm done, kind of a thing. And it's really interesting because Chris Jericho, as of a couple of years ago, had said he would never work for another wrestling promotion except WWE. He said he would only work for Vince McMahon because he had, such a rapport with him and all this. And then Jericho ended up, he got a couple opportunities over in Japan to do some big matches. So he went and did those. He talked to Vince. Vince seemed cool with it. Then this other promotion, AEW, came about, and Jericho did a cruise where they had wrestling on the cruise as well as like comedy and some rock bands on there. And Jericho got to talking with these other guys who were going to AEW and seeing how much fun they're having, how much freedom they've got, the fact that they were making a good amount of money, which Jericho doesn't need. He's made a shit ton of money. But you know, he's even admitted that really wasn't one of his reasons, but all that stuff coming together. So anyway, he ends up signing with AEW, which is huge for an upstart because he brings, God, what is he? I think he's a 28-year vet now. You know, so, but he brings the Chris Jericho name, which is a huge name in that world, you know. So he's going to put butts in seats just by showing up, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And now this guy, John Moxley, he's going to do the same thing because he was just in WWE, you know, and he's going to get that rub from that, you know, people are going to want to come out, and he's a talented guy. So, you know, people are going to want to see him. Not that the other people that were signed aren't talented. It's just, in a lot of people's eyes, if you know, WWE is where you prove yourself, you know. So if you've been there and proven yourself there, then you go to another promotion. It's like, oh, hey, that guy was in WWE, you know, kind of. So, yeah. But anyway, he goes through a whole bunch of, like, tells a few stories about things that had happened to him and how, like after Roman Reigns announced he had leukemia, or his leukemia came back, I should say. Like the writers on one of the episodes wanted him to say something about Roman having, you know, in his leukemia, and he was like, you know, and he made a comment that he wouldn't even say it on the podcast. He told Jericho, I'll tell you afterward, but I'm not going to say it on here. That's how offensive it was, basically. And I was like, wow, you know, like that's, so he, you know, flat out refused to say that, but it was, people for the last few years have really especially been thinking that Vince McMahon's kind of lost touch with everything. You know, like the wrestling world is kind of passing him by, basically. Yeah. And I think this kind of shows a little more of it, you know, so. And it was just a good listen anyway, just as listening to somebody, even if you're a person out there listening and you're kind of burnt out at your job, it might be a good podcast to listen to kind of see where he was and finally was like, man, I got to make a change here. Like, I can't do this. So.
Yeah, I've been just, you know, picking up little bits of conversations about wrestling here and there, and just that whole idea of, like, you know, the fans have become a factor. Yep. Because there's just stuff going on with the writing and that it's just like, no, this is stupid.
Yeah. Oh my God. There was this tag team that when they were on the indies, they were known as War Machine, right? Well, they come to WWE. WWE doesn't like people using a name they don't own because they want to own all the rights to the merch and all this stuff, you know, or most of the rights, whatever. So they changed them to War Raiders, which totally fine. These guys kind of come out and like they're Vikings or whatever. And okay, it still fits. War Raiders still is cool. It, you know, gets the job done. Well, then. Wow. I don't know if that came through on the mic, but holy crap, did it just thunder here?
I didn't hear it.
So when they get called up to Raw, they come out and they bring them out as the Viking Experience. And everybody's like, what? You know, like, no, like, first of all, you've just been telling us for a few months that this is the War Raiders. Now you're telling us it's the Viking Experience. So, of course, the internet destroyed the name. And the next week, or the next time they came out, the name had been changed to the Viking Raiders. Which is better, but, you know, apparently Vince McMahon has an issue with the word war. Like, he doesn't want that. Which I can understand that a little bit. Yeah. But, yeah, I was just... Yeah, that's how out it... Now, I don't know if no one has quite pointed out who decided that was the name, but nothing goes on TV without Vince McMahon's okay. You know, like, nothing sneaks past him, basically. So, he had to have okayed it at some point.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, how do you even hear that name and go, ooh, that sounds like a good team? Like,
yeah, that's
terrible. Like, that doesn't even sound intimidating. The Viking Experience, like people were saying.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Are we drinking from Steins?
Yeah, everybody online was like, is this something at, like, Disney World? Or, you know, like, it sounds like an attraction, you know? So yeah. Anyway, like I said, good listen for. I thought it was just a really good listen anyway, but especially if you have any interest in wrestling or if you're burnout, with something in your life, which now apparently is recognized as an official condition, which I figure we'll talk about on the Crazy Life some point.
Yep.
So yeah.
Wrestling, check.
Trying to think of that. Yeah, that's all the wrestling for this week that I can think of. So, I saw the other day, and this, old man rant time, in that I see different stuff that happens in like our pop culture and whatever, and of course, some of it I'm just a simple caveman lawyer. These things frighten and confuse me, but like I can't get over how much weight is put into people just giving you like a shout out on Instagram, Twitter, whatever, kind of a thing. Yeah, I've had a couple of my tweets retweeted by celebrities or people who are, known. And it's like, okay, it's cool for a minute, but I don't spend like all day or freaking out about it or all this, like I don't even repost it like, oh my God, which whatever. If you do, that's fine. Whatever. But what this is leading me to is, I signed up for a newsletter from a place called The Hustle, which I think I mentioned last week. So they had a thing in their newsletter that there's a site called Cameo that's a startup company. And this company allows you to pay celebrities for a shout out on Instagram. For $500, you can get Snoop D-O G to shout you out on Instagram. And I forgot who else they have on here. Brett Favre's $500. It says, there's people anywhere from $5 up, basically. And here's the amazing part. Like, when you hear about how somebody came up with an idea for a business, and sometimes you're like, whatever, but then there's other times that you're like, wow, that's so, of course they did, first of all, this company is near a $300 million evaluation. It hasn't, and it's just getting going.
Wow.
Or evaluation, sorry, not evaluation. So the way the guy came up with it, I'm just going to read from this thing here. It says, Cameo is an outgrowth of the influencer economy. The company launched in 2017 when co-founder Steve Galanis saw a Seattle Seahawks superfan wig out after a shout-out and realized that people would pay for the same privilege.
Wow.
And as soon as I read that line, I'm like, that's brilliant. Like, I hate the idea that this is a thing, but that was a brilliant piece of business by that guy. Because there's going to be people paying this money to get that celebrity shout-out, because then they can try to keep, getting more and more Instagram followers, even though I don't know, because there's all the influencer stuff. But it's so weird because I see so many accounts that have like 50,000 followers. And it's like, yeah, because they also follow 50,000 people. And the way that they skew the numbers is they follow everybody. And then at a certain point, whether they use a program or do it by, manually, they dump a bunch, they quit following everybody. So it looks like they follow 50 people, but they still have 50,000 followers because most people don't check to see if it's still mutual. And some of these people end up becoming influencers because they can just use that number, So anyway, but yeah, I was more like kudos to the guy for this piece of business, and also shame on you, society, for letting this happen.
Seriously.
By the way, Tony or I, and I'm sure Henno would get in on this too, you want to throw us some money for a shout out, I'll shout you out too. Not that we influence anybody, but yeah. Oh man,
I just don't get it.
Right? Like, but that's the thing. Everybody's doing all this shit on social media in the hopes that they become an influencer.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And it's true about, we've said a million times on here about podcasts and stuff like that. It's like what gets your podcast noticed? Connecting with the right person.
Yep.
Having the right interview.
Yep.
Having, whatever it is. It has nothing to do with, follow Fridays and all that stuff.
Yeah. I will say this. Like, if you're a podcast looking to get some followers,
that's not a bad idea.
And you got some money,
yeah,
this might be a good way to get some followers.
It's
I
true.
don't know if
you
it'll
are
translate to downloads.
If you're looking at investing a little bit, let's just say, like if this is something you're willing to put some money in towards advertising, that'd be a way to do it.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'd kind of like to have the sound file of, Snoop Dogg recommending salty language on Instagram.
Yep.
But I'm not going to pay $500.
No.
So yeah, if that's what you're looking for, though, the link's in the show notes.
Lord.
Cameo. I hate when I read something about, like I said, brilliant piece of business, very smart, savvy move by that guy.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, man, I hate that can exist.
That's it. Exactly.
Like I said, because if I had the same thought, I would have a $300 million company now, too.
That's it.
Actually, I wouldn't, because he's got connections, probably. I'd probably be trying to figure out how to sell to somebody. Oh, man. So, yeah, that's good fun.
Yeah.
So here's something that is interesting to me, and this is something you and I have kind of been talking about a little bit over the last couple of weeks anyway, off podcast.
Off mic.
Yeah. So this week, Nintendo announced something called Pokemon Sleep, right? And it's this device that basically, I think it stays in bed with you, and it tracks your sleeping. And when I first read about this, I was like, that's terrifying. I don't know that I want Nintendo getting all of my information when I sleep. Now, if you're a person who uses a sleep app, you're already giving away your info. Actually, and I actually have more on that after this. But the whole Nintendo says that the point of this is to help people get better sleep, because apparently, like, the better sleep you get, it translates to something inside in the game, basically. Trying to find something that's like tells more about like that, but it's gonna come out next year. But dang it, sorry, I can't find the thing I was looking for that gives a little more details. Anyway, so I still have, it'll be in the show notes or whatever. But essentially, this goes back to those ideas like, what is your data? What is your privacy worth to you? Because you're going to be, I'll do just like the Pokemon Go. Like, oh yeah, we're trying to get people out moving. Bullshit, you're trying to collect data. That's exactly what that is. That is a massive data
collection operation.
For sure. And same with this, which, you know what, it's fine. If you're fine with it, then okay. I was reading something the other day about how there's a company that started doing a thing where they give you, it sucks because of how they're doing it, so I don't think it's going to catch on, but they will give you some cryptocurrency. Like, you can choose what data of yours can be bought by different places, and then you get cryptocurrency for when they collect data from you. And I was like, on one hand, cool, because we really shouldn't be giving away our data, because data is the gold mine now. But at the same time, it's like you're giving me a cryptocurrency that you just started. It's not like it's Bitcoin or something, to where you're like, okay, this has been around for a little bit. This is just some rando upstart. So you might as well just be giving me paper towels, So it's really interesting, though, because I can't... This is going to be tracking kids' information as well as adults' information. And this is going to make it to where Pokemon essentially can have your information 24 hours a day. Like anything you do, they'll track.
There's already been some stuff about that as far as tracking with kids.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember what it was, but I know I heard a news story about that.
Mm-hmm.
Where the people brought up the fact that, like, whoa, wait a minute. These are, you've got children on here and you're tracking them.
Yeah. Like, I'm not cool with that. Like, if you want to track adults, that's one thing, but I really don't like the idea of tracking kids. But how are you going to tell, as a parent, it's going to be a real tough thing to tell your kid no when they want when they want this. Not that you can't, I'm just saying it'd be difficult. But I just don't feel it should be legal.
That's the whole idea, is that children are not allowed to sign a EULA.
Yeah.
Really?
Right.
Not allowed to be, the parents have to sign those contracts.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of games have, like, minimum age of 13 or whatever it is and that kind of stuff, but I'm still like, okay, how can you bind them to an end user license agreement?
Yeah, right.
Really?
Yeah.
You're not of the age of majority. You cannot. Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
And I think that's what this was kind of getting into, this article I read about it.
Yeah.
Because that thing you sent me about the cars just creeped me out.
Yeah, I didn't even talk about that on here. That was something you and I just talked about. But I had sent Heno an article, again, found from thehustle.com, that talks about how much. In fact, you know what? I'll put the link for that article, because that's something everybody should read. It
changed my perspective on some things.
Yeah, it talks about how much data your car can collect from you. And I think, like, initially I was like, well, yeah, it's going to track, how fast you're going, where you go. But it gets even beyond that. It, because they can essentially track, like, your weight, what time of day you go to certain places, like what kind of food you eat, because it'll track how many times you go to McDonald's versus Subway or whatever. And, there's all these, like, what it reminds me of? Was it a year or two ago? Do you remember when I was talking about Spotify and all the data they collect?
Yep.
Holy crap. For those who don't know, if you've missed that episode, Spotify collects a lot of data about you that is really irrelevant to what they do. There's a lot that they collect that totally is relevant to what they do. And now a lot of these companies say that they, everything stays in-house and whatever. But along with the car one, I read another one like that was talking about how basically if you have the what's it called, the auto update thing on your phone, to where apps can download in the background. That basically all day long, anytime one of those apps wants, basically they can transmit data to the whoever is on the other end of that. And a lot of these apps and stuff, I don't think people really look at the permissions that you're giving them, and then you're just willy-nilly doing that. And then at any time of the day, these things can just be sending this tracking information. Actually, yeah, I do have I couldn't remember if I had that article or not. But there was a guy that, because he was talking about, like, on the iPhones, how Apple says, what happens on your phone stays on your phone type of thing.
Yep.
And this guy, God dang, I keep losing the place I'm looking for. Here we go. With the help of privacy firm Disconnect, which makes an app that can help you with this kind of thing for a fee, of course, Fowler encountered over 5,400 trackers in just 1 week on his phone. Mostly within apps that send his information to third-party companies. Over the course of a month, the unwanted trackers were on track to upload 1.5 gigabytes of data. It says, that is your data. Why should it even leave your phone? Why should it be collected by someone who, when you don't know what they're going to do with it, said former NSA researcher Patrick Jackson, who is currently Disconnect's chief technology officer, which, I mean, grain of salt there. I mean, that's like saying your home isn't safe unless you have a security system, by a guy who's selling security systems.
Systems, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, but there's still truth to this, whatever. It says Jackson used special software to analyze Fowler's iPhone. Sorry, I lost my track here again. Anyway, so the stuff that they talk about on here is like Yelp actually was sending information like during off times, and different apps that he used, like DoorDash says it uses a tracker called SIF Science to get a fingerprint of your phone, including device name, model and identifier, and memory size, as well as the accelerometer motion reading to help identify fraud, so they say. 3 other trackers used by DoorDash monitor the app's performance, including one called Segment, which routes data such as the delivery address, name, email, and cell carrier of the phone's owner. And I'm not going to read all of this because there's quite a bit here, but this is another article. Like, I'm going to have a few of them in here that I really feel like this is the kind of stuff I think, again, I've talked on here before about how we go too far and then we're like, oh shit. And this is this kind of stuff. Like, so many of us have already signed off on just handing this stuff out. And there's probably really going to be not much we can do about it unless you start, like, getting off your phone more. So.
Well, all right. So the phone stuff, at least, we do have a certain amount of control over those apps, right? You don't have to use them at its simplest, or like, I know, you can make the settings, set them up so that they're only tracking you when you're using the app, not running in the background.
Yep.
There's various different ways of monitoring that. The car thing got me because you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
It's in the lease agreement.
Yeah.
Or the sales agreement.
Oh yeah, really quick for anyone listening, especially the lease cars. I believe it said collect the most data. Because again, they track your everything. Anything they can track during that time, they track. And all these cars now have pretty much have like the Apple CarPlay or the Google whatever it's called, so that's more information that can be grabbed by the whoever has access to that stuff too. So yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. It's like, and it made me literally, what got me about it is like, okay, yeah, there's reasons to have, again, there's the convenience of the fact that your car can link to either a dealer or a manufacturer or just digitally linked to somebody,
like
especially
OnStar.
If you have a car problem.
Yeah, like an OnStar situation or something.
Exactly, like the OnStar. And they can literally look at your DCT codes, which are the codes that tell them what's not working correctly.
Yeah.
And they can help you with, like, okay, is this something I need to pull over now, or can I drive home, or, that kind of stuff.
Right.
But so I get that, but I never thought about the idea, and even like the Fitbit and my Fitbit app, right? So I'm having it look at my sleep. Yeah. If that stuff goes into some database somewhere about general sleep patterns of, I don't fill out my profile all the way, so, they know a little bit about me, but not everything.
Right.
But still, if it ends up going to some, these are the sleep patterns of males between the age of blah, blah, blah in Idaho.
Yeah.
Fine. That stuff doesn't bother me.
No, I'm with you on that. Yeah.
Yeah. If somebody called me and asked me if I was interested in participating in how your Ford Escape is being driven on a weekly basis, I'd be like, fine.
Mm-hmm.
However, it gets to the point like where it's talking about where you're going, and now cross-referencing that with, like you're saying, are you going to fast food places, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
You start getting to this level where it's like, yeah, I want to, and that I can't opt out of it.
Yeah, that's where the real issue is. Like, as long as they give me the option of opting out, you know what, buyer beware. You know what I mean? Read the fine print. Look at like I said, look at the permissions that you're giving these apps, all that kind of stuff. You know.
Yeah, like I'm seriously, I'm considering leasing my next vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
This is giving me second thoughts about that.
Yeah, that's that. Without getting into it too deep, that's how strong the talk about the lease stuff is in this. But it goes even further too. Like you have, I know Progressive has them, and I think other companies too. Those little things they'll send you, and they're like, oh, if you're a safe driver, we'll give you a discount on your insurance, and it's like,
hey.
Oh, awesome, right?
Yeah.
On the flip side, just like I was saying, just be aware that also they're going to tell them every time that you're not being a safe driver. And if they see that you're constantly going too fast, stopping on a dime, whatever, your rates are going to go up at some point. It's just, because that information is theirs at that point. And you can't really complain because you've authorized it, because you've asked for the product. So again, just stuff like that. Just be aware of what you're giving away for something, And again, look, if you are a safe driver, I mean, those things can save you money. I've seen perfect examples of it, So they're not all nefarious and bad. It's just I'm more of a and I'm more waving the flag to be like, hey, just be aware of what's going on here, a little bit. Because like you said, the price of convenience is always safety or security, like when it comes to technology. The faster and easier stuff is, the more dangerous it is.
Basically, it's that idea of the price of security is our liberty.
Yes.
And that goes with anything.
Yep.
When there's someone that has authority.
Yes.
And yeah. So did I tell you about the how they chalk tires?
Yes.
The parking meters?
Yes.
That is being has been now deemed unconstitutional.
I saw that, and that's
Did you see that story? I read the law behind it, and I was like,
yeah,
holy fuck! And the fact that this one woman, this one person who just had a shit ton of parking tickets, contacted a lawyer, and that lawyer managed to take the case where they had put a tracking device on a vehicle. That went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court found that placing the device on the vehicle constituted an illegal seizure at that point, search and seizure.
Yep. And by the way, for the record, the main reason I found out about this is the woman's from Michigan.
That's right, she was.
Saginaw, which isn't that far from here,
And I wanted to ask you about it, too, and when I got the story about if that – oh, it was up in Saginaw. That's right. It made me think of Dev instantly. Yeah, I was reading the whole idea, and it was that idea that if they'd have, like the guy that they were tracking, if they followed him, not a problem.
Right.
If they got a court order to GPS his phone, not a problem.
Not a problem. Yep.
But the minute that they stuck a device on his vehicle, without a judge involved, they could be following him all day long. They violated his protection to a reasonable search and seizure.
Yep.
And the woman's lawyer argued that by them touching her car with the chalk, how long has this been used?
Long time.
Yeah. And because of a court case that's happened within the last X amount of years.
Yeah.
Like if somebody had taken chalking a tire to the Supreme Court, they wouldn't have even listened to it.
Oh, no. Yeah.
They would have been like, Yeah. I loved it.
Yeah. It blew my mind because I've known so many people over the years that have had their tires chalked. And the reason, for anyone who doesn't know, they chalk your tires basically to see how
long you've been there.
Yeah, because I believe, isn't it like certain ones, like you can't park for more than like an hour, basically. So so they mark the tires to see if the tires if they've been
come
moved.
back. Yep.
If they come back and it's in this same spot, they know that you haven't moved, and ticket.
Yep.
And like you said, that's because when I first read it, I was like, how is this unconstitutional? And I was like, well,
Yeah.
they are marking on your vehicle. And I'm thinking more like it's vandalism kind of a thing, you know?
Yeah.
And then when I read that, I was like, wow. I was like, I'll be honest. I mean, I feel a little bit like this is really grasping at straws, but at the same time, I mean, it's your property. They can't, just like your trunk, you know, they can't get into your trunk without permission or well, it's permission no matter how you look at it. It's either your permission or a judge's permission. So
we had, this was amazing. We just, it was in the paper about a month ago. There was just a rash of arrests with people who had drugs or paraphernalia on them, you know, and what turned it, you know, went from a regular traffic stop into into felonies.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of girls and they got nailed for various paraphernalia, small amount of drugs, blah, blah, blah.
Right. Oh yeah, that's right. Because it's not legal there, is it?
Yeah, no. And
Sorry,
and I mean,
you
we're talking
have to forget like recreational is okay here. So
yeah, and this was also meth too. So it was like, you know, it was next level. You know, it was like
that's a different story.
They didn't have any records, you know, so it wouldn't have been that bad. But still, they were looking at multiple felonies. And last week, basically the prosecutor dropped all the charges because the marshal, because this is the one we have one community where they actually have marshals still.
Oh wow!
It's an interesting. So Bellevue, Idaho, which is the next town down, is this strange. They have like a town council and everything like that, but there's this weird kind of. They're a city that's still not incorporated as a city. So, like for example, they vote on a different day than everyone else does.
Okay.
Because anything that they do. That's like they'd have to get the states, like literally the state House of Representatives would have to change the rules for them. It's a strange. They're the last
wow.
one.
You think they would clean that up? You know.
I think they don't because it's such a unique feature. It makes the city unique.
I get you.
And so like when all of us are voting on blah, blah, blah day, they're voting on another day because they're still following state laws going back hundreds of years. Right.
Right.
And it's really wild. It's kind of neat. So they, like I said, they have a marshal still. And, because if they wanted to have a city police department, they'd literally have to get the state of Idaho's approval. But so the marshal.
Sorry, that's just really funny.
I know, isn't it bizarre?
Like, hey, we'd like to have police officers. We're going to have to think about this one.
Yep.
Which I guess it makes sense because someone's got to allocate a budget for it, you know. So.
Yeah, it's so strange.
That's funny.
So the marshal. What the prosecutor said is that the marshal wanted to search this car.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the rules is so he was gonna take her in. I can't remember if it was a DUI or what. No, that's what it was. It was so simple. It was she had her privileges she'd taken away, so she didn't have a driver's license. Mm-hmm. So he couldn't let her drive, right?
Yeah.
Well, the passenger said, "I'll take the car." He ignored her. He took the car.
Oh, so illegal impounding of the car, huh?
Exactly. So because they don't, if they impound a vehicle, they don't need a judge. They have to do an inventory of the vehicle, right?
Yeah.
So that is a reasonable search.
So that's how he got his reasonable search for the paraphernalia then?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Way to step in it there, deputy.
Right? And it's amazing because that was the thing that blew me away is that the prosecutor was the one that said it was it wasn't the defense attorney. The prosecutor knew this was an illegal search.
Yeah.
Because the passenger was willing to take the car home and there was no reason she couldn't.
Oh, wow. So, so realistically, the one should have been taken in, but only for the other stuff because that search would have never happened had the process gone the way it's supposed to go because that person would have taken it. You never find the drugs or whatever. Wow.
Yep. And so it was, talk about you're sitting there in a courtroom and you are facing multiple felonies and the judge says, today is your lucky day.
No shit, right?
Hopefully you'll learn something from this.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that if you don't straighten yourself out after that, I mean, you kind of deserve whatever comes next.
Exactly. No sympathy
No
whatsoever.
sympathy.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. If you show back up in court and they're like, like, really? Like,
Yeah.
we're doing this?
You got the biggest bonus ever.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, I got to say, good on the prosecutor for not trying to keep pushing it and just wasting money. I mean, they're probably going to catch a lawsuit off of it, but, if they arrested anybody, because that's,
everything else up till then was completely fine. So, and unless there's any damage, I don't know what you're going to sue for.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, other than the fact that your name got in the paper for this stuff, but I don't know. But I've noticed that around here, we see that a lot around here.
Yeah, I don't doubt
our prosecuting attorneys will step up and just say, yeah, this isn't right, or this doesn't.
I mean, look,
I appreciate that.
If somebody's guilty of something, I mean, you should, you got to pay your price. But at the same time, it's like, there's a reason these rules are in place, and it's, whether you like them or not. Like I always say about anything, whether it's sports or whatever, it's like if you don't like the rule, fine, but you still have to obey it. And if you don't like a rule, try to enact change. But otherwise, it's like, it's a rule. It's there. Like this area, the police up here have been known for years for people doing rolling stops. And they will ticket you for them. And people always gripe about it, or whatever. And I'm like, you ran a stop sign or a stoplight. Like, you broke the law. Well, it's like, it doesn't matter. It's like speeding. Even if you're 0.00001 miles over the speed limit, you're speeding. Now, most of the time, the cops will just be like, and no big deal. Yeah. But they don't have
5 miles
to
an
do
hour.
that.
It could be a freaking speedometer error.
Yeah, and they don't have to do that. Yeah. It's like people always want to get mad at the police for doing their job.
Yeah.
It's like, how about you stop breaking the law? How about that?
Yeah. Well, and that's the part where I don't like. I've been pushing back on this idea of anytime someone starts talking about the government, or they, and it's you hear about this on the Crazy Life all the time. We talk about distorted thinking.
Yeah.
And one of them is objectifying. So we objectify, we want to call it the government because it's easy. It's us. We are the government. Yeah. Now, you can get as cynical as you want about whether your vote matters, yada, yada. And I can give you plenty of examples where a vote did matter.
Totally. Yep.
But with all that said, we the people.
Yeah.
It's easier to make it a bad guy when it's the government.
It is. Yep. That's why
if
you work in retail, one of the things you've probably been taught at some point, maybe not just retail, it's just my experience, is there's different times where I'd be talking with my managers, like the district or regional or whatever, and it'd be like, well, we need to start doing this. And I'm like, people are going to be mad about that. And they're like, well, just tell them it's a corporate policy. Because
there you have it.
Because instead of hating me, a lot of times that'll help diffuse a situation because people be like, man, corporate sucks, and be like, yeah, kind of a thing, even though you're like, well, they pay me, so I kind of, But that it was something that you learn is a lot of times is just like make the company the bad guy. And because it's easy now it's a little different now with social media, because now people can have access to the corporate really fast on Twitter or whatever, but then that was the point of that. Similar, like you were saying, it's easy to just blame the government instead of this or that, or enacting change. Again, it's easy to just and then you go into, like you said, my vote doesn't count, I'm not gonna this or that, and it's like, okay, so what you're telling me is you're gonna bitch, but you won't do anything to change it. Got it.
Yeah, so. and my favorite, this is, again, it's when someone whips out the old distorted thinking on me. Name one time that anybody has ever made a difference, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, John Oliver got on his show and had 50,000 people contact the FCC the next day,
Yeah.
and something changed. Now, in the long run, it didn't work itself out because it was a change in administration.
Uh-huh.
However, it happens all the time.
Right.
But if you want to be cynical and use black and white thinking,
Right. Yeah. Exactly. It's very
it
simple
never
to do
happens.
that. Yeah.
Believe me, I'll find one time where it did.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here's one I can think of that's fairly recent. On June 26, 2015, the U.S. Supreme Court held in a 5-4 decision that the 14th Amendment requires all states to grant same-sex marriages. There's one time when one vote mattered because it wasn't a push. So, yeah. And there's plenty, and not just Supreme Court, but there's, plenty of other examples out there.
Well, we've seen a lot of elections lately that have come down to some tiny margins.
Right.
As a matter of fact, there was one state, they flipped a coin.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Because that's what it told them to do.
There are some states that have that law. There's some that I think it's basically like rock, paper, scissors or whatever. It's just, there's some dumbass
because they never thought it was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And they literally had a recount, and the recount wiped out the majority.
Mm-hmm.
It's classic stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, beautiful stuff.
Well,
and
and another thing on that is like the one vote thing. It's like, okay, if it actually was just one vote, it'd be one thing. But you're not the only person who didn't vote.
Yep.
So if everybody out there who has the "my vote doesn't matter" mentality went and voted, your vote would matter, because one way or the other, it would enact change, or it won't. I mean, because someone else basically countered your vote. But it's the idea that, again, if you want change, that's the only way we have change. Is if you don't like what politicians are doing, go vote them out. Become part of a group that's, getting people to sign up for registrations, to get out and vote. And that's it. And like I've said before on here, I don't care which way you vote. That's your decision. I'm not gonna, whatever. But it's just, but just do it. I mean, man, you look at the percentage of people that turn out for voting, it's sad. You see these other countries where people are literally getting shot at to go vote. And over here, we're like, meh, it's like, it's a matter of time, I figure, before it's on our phone, and if that happens, you'll probably see all sorts of votes because it'll be so much easier.
But it won't happen.
No, it won't.
Well, all right. It will happen. It'll happen in states that want to make voting as easy as possible.
Yeah.
And it'll never happen in the states that don't.
Accurate.
But that's our system.
Yes.
And like we just had it was kind of a weird thing. Our city decided to vote for, it was to upgrade electrical services into the town. And so they can have a charge placed on basically your utility bill that then the money goes towards the town and upgrading the utilities.
Okay.
And so the city decided to have a special vote on this. And it was last Tuesday. There's literally nothing. There's no elections going on. There's nothing going on.
Yeah.
So it's like our last election, it was already like, I can't, 20% showed up to vote. This was down to like not even 5.
Yeah, they had something like that around here, I think, that basically the same thing. Like there was nothing else. It was just voting on, or it was like one or two things or something like that. And like basically nobody showed up because, like you said, it's not when everything else is being voted on, or, or a big deal's not made about it,
Oh yeah. It's literally, it's something that may pop up in the local newspaper. There was probably a mailing that went out with the city newsletter.
Yeah.
But the people that are going to be affected by it, and I'm talking not even homeowners, voters, everybody resides in this town that pays an electrical bill.
Yeah.
Will pay this surcharge that was voted in. So we have just around 10,000 people. No, 8,000 something like that.
Yeah.
Can't remember what it was now. 86. We had hundreds of people voted. Yeah, that's it.
I wonder how many of the people who didn't vote were like, "Oh, it's gonna go through one way or another." Like that kind of an attitude about it.
The thing about it would have been so easy to defeat with just a little bit of effort,
right? Yeah,
because we're literally talking Hundreds.
Because nobody showed up to vote for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like 300 people showed up, 200 voted yes, 100 voted no, whatever it was. It was like literally this tiny percentage,
Right,
one or
yeah,
two.
like another 150 people show up and it swings the other way,
Yeah,
or not even 150, like 105 or something, Yeah.
That's it, yeah.
Like, jeez. Meanwhile, you get millions and millions of votes on, American Idol, so or The Voice or whatever.
Man, this has been a great old man rant.
Yeah, it has. Man, this whole episode's been old man rant. Speaking of old man rant, not really. Did you see Apple's killing off iTunes as far as iTunes goes? Like the name, and they're getting rid of they're discontinuing the app, I guess, but there's going to be another app called Music, from what I've read. And they're going to basically.
So this has been a rumor for a while.
Yeah, it's like confirmed.
Okay.
Rolling Stone reported on it, and I actually saw on Twitter where someone asked a question and Apple responded to them, which is weird because I didn't think Apple had officially announced it yet, and that's not Apple's motive. Normally they wait until whatever, and then they're like, like I could see at their next event if they were like, iTunes, right? Am I right? It's not, that was Steve Jobs. Let's do this. This is cool in us now. But it sounds like what they're basically doing is breaking up iTunes into music, movies, television, kind of like individual apps, basically, and then like podcasts. That's why Apple Podcasts
that was
already
the
exist.
beginning of it, I guess, was with that Apple Podcasts.
Right. Now, the only question I have and care about is, well, can I still access my music? Because if not, I need to start backing up some shit. But yeah, because
remember that.
Go ahead.
That here's the thing. So we don't own songs.
Right.
We own licenses.
That's true. Well, some of those songs, I sort of own because they were.
I
CDs.
have possession of them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But technically,
yeah, you're right.
They didn't sell me any music. They sold me a license to music.
Yeah, that's true. There's going to be so many people that would be really mad if that's the case, But from the other thing I had kind of read on this is that really, it's essentially the ultimate move here is to just try to get everybody to stream because, like you had said before when we talked about this, they make more money on streaming than they do
because of licensing.
Because of licensing.
Because of a really good lawsuit that Eminem won.
Yeah. So, so I guess if you're pissed at that being the end goal, then, take it up with Eminem. Dear Stan. No. Dear M. Yeah, anyway. From what I read, it's going to be like fairly soon that they're talking about doing this or going to, officially announce it or whatever. Where is it? Yeah, apparently next Monday. But the day this drops, essentially, it says Apple will have a keynote and they'll be announcing, standalone music, television, and podcast apps. Which, on my phone, I honestly don't care on my phone. But on my computer, is where I'm curious how this affects me.
No, it won't because here's the thing. iTunes is still the interface with the phones.
Oh, okay.
With the devices. So on the desktop,
yeah,
I think it'll still be iTunes.
Oh, okay.
Because they can't, it doesn't make sense to get rid of that as far as the desktop goes because of the iOS devices. Because you need to be able to have a library to transfer music and then back up your files and da-da-da. And iTunes is the interface.
Yeah.
So they would have to come up with a whole new interface, which I don't think they would do. They will roll out multiple apps for sure on devices.
Yes.
That makes sense to me. That's nothing on them. You already have Apple Podcasts, Apple TV.
Yep.
You have books. That's not a big deal. But on the desktop, I don't think so.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing. Is I'm curious. What's really weird is they just pushed out like an iTunes update not too long ago. So it's kind of just feels a little weird. But I am curious to see if there's any sort of a redesign for the desktop. I'll tell you, there's
That would make sense.
one damn thing I wish they would do on the podcast, which is allow me to hide ones that I've already deleted. I hate so much that I have I have podcasts on there, and it'll say like 135, and you go in and look, and it's like I've listened to all of these but 2. Why is it showing 135? And it's because you can download them from the cloud. And it's like, yeah, I get that, but I can download them essentially at any time. And if not, then they won't show as available. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I've already listened to them. I can maybe even understand it if it's the first time you download a podcast, so they show you that there's a bunch of others available. But when you've already listened to those episodes, they should just not be there unless you want them there. Like, that's all I want, just the ability to turn that off, because when I go to look, it's like I don't want to scroll through a bunch of stuff. I just, the way it used to be was you click on whatever name and it would only show the unlistened, like the podcast you hadn't listened to yet. It doesn't do that anymore. Now it shows all available. The difference is the ones have a little cloud icon next to them. And it annoys the shit out of me. So, it's not what I'm used to. It's really funny how many people I've seen, finally when it came to this. And even the Rolling Stones article is, Apple is finally killing iTunes.
Yeah. It's interesting seeing the headlines. So they're going to have a music app, and I bet that will do all the syncing functions and that stuff.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, iTunes. We never really loved you anyway.
Wow. Do you remember years ago when they replaced the, what was it, iPhoto with Photos?
Yes.
I feel like that's what the music app is going to do to iTunes. I feel like it's going to be basically the same program. It's just going to be maybe a fresh coat of paint over the top of it.
Yeah. All your folders are going to transfer over. They'll all still be there, blah, blah, blah.
I sure hope
playlist,
so.
yada.
Yeah. It seems like it'd be really dumb not to do that, So I can't, who knows, but I don't see that happening either. So, yeah.
Wow, we ended up with Tech Talk with Henno and Brian after all.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, a couple of times because the data stuff.
Actually, that is Tech Talk.
So.
Huh?
All right. You got anything else? So we should probably wrap her up.
Nope.
No? All right. Well, actually, here, let me pull up. Just going to randomly scroll and pick one. I'm going to do a couple shower thoughts. Vanilla, chocolate, and coffee are all beans. No matter which one you prefer, your favorite flavor is beans. Thanks, but no sounds way more rude than no, but thanks. Peppers evolved to be so hot so animals wouldn't eat them and they would survive. We eat them because they are hot, and as a result, they will survive. At a nude beach, erectile dysfunction is a superpower.
It's true.
Yeah. Where is it? I'll do one more here. Wow. At this very moment, someone is getting anal beads pulled out of their ass.
Okay, thanks for sharing.
Yeah. All right, this is my last one. Water is pretty crazy. It can boil you to death, freeze you to death, and drown you, but you still need it to survive.
It's like trivia and dad jokes all rolled into one.
All right, I lied. Here's the last one. Since prostitution is the oldest profession, money was only invented so we could pay for sex. That's the last one. So, I enjoy those. It's quickly become one of my favorite subreddits. So,
you know what? I screwed up last time.
Yeah,
is that I didn't do any macho drops.
Oh yeah.
Like not one.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing I'm about to do it again, so I'm going to
the cream of the crop.
There, done.
Woo, good. I was worried.
Oh, actually, wait.
I'm not a racist.
In case you were wondering.
Yeah, well, he's not. I mean, he's dead, so.
I still think this is my favorite.
The tower of power, too sweet to be sour. I'm funky like a monkey. Sky's the limit and space is the place.
Yep.
So good.
That is so good. It's
I mean, Kareem, yeah, is awesome, but
No,
that's
one's
a combo right there.
That one's my favorite because it's just a whole bunch of word salad.
Yeah.
You know,
It's just funky as a monkey. Spaces. I'm like, where the fuck is Spaces? The place comes from.
Yep.
God, he was a genius. I didn't like him when I was in high school.
Yeah.
Like I was such a. I mean, I was just you're a Hogan fan. It's kind of and Randy was kind of always like he's kind of the heel, but he had his moments but then later looking back, it's like he was the best.
Yeah. He was so good. I mean, even if you didn't like him from the fan perspective, it's like you still got to admire what the guy did for the business and with, like just
the promos.
He's one of the best. Yeah.
Yeah. Like when I think back on it now, I think part of what made Hogan so appealing to all of us is that there was a Randy Savage.
Yeah.
That there was somebody across from him.
Yep.
Because you can't do all that stuff by yourself.
That's right.
It's teamwork.
You got to have good villains for the heroes. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to have it. And they don't have to be outright villains. They can just be they can just be competition.
Well, a perfect example is like one of the biggest things when I was a kid was when Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan wrestled each other.
Yep.
And it was like so many kids I knew were like, I don't know who to pick.
I was blown away.
I mean, I was there. I was kind of that way, but I was a huge Hogan mark as a kid. So it was, Hogan was my guy.
I loved Ultimate Warrior.
But I liked Ultimate Warrior too. Yeah. So it was like, well, there's really no loser here from my perspective.
Yeah.
So
the hard part with Ultimate, a lot of these guys, and this is when I didn't understand what wrestling really was.
Right.
It's like, look at this guy. He's ripped. He's fast. He's got move. Look at that guy. He's old. He's flabby. He's a little slow. Yep. He's bald. How does that guy win?
Because of Hulkamania, brother.
I know.
Actually, he didn't win that
Pythons.
Match. He should have won that match, but the ref was knocked out.
That's true. Grr. I'll never get over it.
The best part of that is that the crowd counts. I love when that happens in wrestling because that's one of those where those two guys are like, we got him. Yep. That's one of my favorite things to hear when I hear wrestling stories is when they talk about. I've heard Ricky Steamboat tell some that were like that, where he's telling the story and then he's like, I'll tell. He told whoever he was in the ring with, like, do this. And they're like, why? And he's like, just do it. And he's like, just that little extra bit, just turn it just a little bit. And it's like, you get the big pop out of the crowd. And that's what you're looking for, even though you would have had a great, it takes it from being a good match in a lot of people's eyes to a great match, so
it's just like, I'm telling you, so much like music.
Mm-hmm.
It's really true. When you've got an audience that you're connecting with, and that, it's like you go for something, you're like, trust me, let's do this, and the crowd just goes wild.
Yeah, because you get immediate feedback.
Yep, exactly.
Right away if the crowd's digging it or if they're not. Unless, from what I've heard, unless you're in an open arena, because all the sound goes out. So the guys have talked about how they don't hear the crowd much in those matches. So it's harder to gauge whether the crowd's really into what you're doing or not.
That's tough.
That's got to be really difficult.
That's really tough. Because like if you think about it, like musicians now with their in-ear monitors, they literally have microphones at the audience. They've got a feed. They're constantly getting the feedback.
Yeah. Well, and
those guys they can't do that.
Yeah, exactly. And in wrestling, like WrestleMania, they've been holding it outside more and more. So
you wouldn't be able to feel it.
So it's like, man, of all the events to have outside, WrestleMania feels like the one you should have inside so that you can feel the crowd. Plus, you get all that amplification for the audio and everything, makes the place sound like it's just erupting with, cheering and stuff. So, but whatever, they know what they're doing. They've done okay. So,
rumor has it,
I guess, yeah. So, all right, if you want to do okay, that's a terrible segue, but whatever. Head over to saltylanguage.com and, click all the linkies and stuff on there. I believe the show notes, if for some reason the show notes aren't up on there, because Tony's been working ridiculous schedule, If the show notes aren't up there, they're in the, when you go to look at the podcast, they're there. And I think, at least they used to, some, like the podcast app, the Apple Podcast app, would show hot links. And I know some of the aggregators don't do that. Some of them do. So, but whatever. If you need a link to something and you can't find it, just, hit us up. While you're on saltylanguage.com, you can see the networks we're part of. The Tangent Bound Network and...
Danger! Watch your back! Danger!
Entertainment. So, yeah.
God, I know it's coming, and I'm still like... mm-hmm.
Also...
I take a look, and I go, okay, I'm ready.
No, I'm not ready. Yeah.
And I'm not ready.
Also, go check out our network pals and friends and whatever over at the Pittsburgh Nerd, which, if you didn't listen, there's a promo before the intro song to this show. So go back and listen to that, Go check those peoples out. Probably, I've heard they do good business over there.
Yeah, Sean and Ian are awesome. I got to go visit them and podcast with them in person, and it was really great. Those boys got some serious geek nerd cred.
Excellent. We like that kind of stuff. If you want to contact the show, I guess you can hit us up on Twitter at salty_language. You can email us at saltylanguage@gmail.com if you'd like to send in shower thoughts of your own or high thoughts, however you want to look at that, because to me they're kind of one and the same. If you want to send those in, or a story that you want us to talk about, or a topic or anything, feel free to send them in. So you can also find the show on Instagram at Salty Language. You can find us on YouTube at Salty Language Pod. Tony hasn't really been doing Snapchat or anything, so that's, kind of swept to the side at the moment. Check out Tony's other podcast, All the Beers Pod. It's on a hiatus right now, but you can catch up in the meantime. The link for that's in the show notes also, or go to allthebeerspod.com. You can follow Tony on Twitter at Monotony or Monotony.
As we like to call him.
Yes, I do. You can follow me on Twitter at Stunami. You can also find me on Instagram under that name. And you can find me and Henno on another podcast with our friend Jen called The Crazy Life, where we talk about all sorts of stuff, but it's, mental health or mindfulness and just overall wellness. Yeah. So go check that out. You can find that anywhere that, like, wherever you got this show, we're listed in the same thing. So just find us by The Crazy Life. And Henno, how about you?
You can find me on Twitter at Ida Henno. And if you're into the television show The Orville, I do a podcast called The Orville Lights. If you have watched Gotham or have not and are interested in hearing a podcast about that same podcast sometimes is called Gotham Lights. And as a matter of fact, we just released an episode yesterday of The Orville where we ranked all the episodes of season 2 and talked about them for 2 hours. I'm surprised it took that long, but it did.
Fair enough.
Yeah, there you have it.
All right. So I guess, I feel like I'm forgetting something here, but I can't think of what it is. Did I forget anything?
I don't think so.
Yeah, maybe I did. Whatever. Everything's in the show notes if you need it, or on saltylanguage.com. So until next week, have a beer, you'll be fine.
And fuck the deadly fluff.
It seems like if something's called deadly fluff, that's not where you want to stick your dick.
There are people, though.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
There are those people.
I'm doing it for
Speaking
science.
Of objectifying.
Yeah.
Those people.
Uh-oh.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Your people.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I'm a dude playing a dude that's playing another dude.
Oh man. Yeah, I guess, stay salty and I don't know.
The fluff.
I guess fuck the fluff, yeah.